In today's episode of Behind the Wire, we're going to be talking about the subject of our very first video last September, and that is Washington State is trying to take control of your local elected sheriffs. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I am your host, Robert Burwell. I'm also the president of Washington 3%. Today we are going to be revisiting what we did our first video about last year, which is Senate Bill 5974. Now, if you watched our first episode or you paid attention to Washington politics at all last year, you would know that last year they brought up this bill, which is basically going to be putting together a committee that is going to decide what are the requirements are for somebody to run for sheriff in Washington State. And it will also give our state legislature the ability to remove your duly elected sheriff. Last year, this bill died in committee, and this year they are reintroducing it, and they're going to push it hard this year. Now, what this bill does, let's see, what this bill does is it makes new requirements for running for the office of sheriff. And what they've got so far is you have to be 25 years or older. You have to have 5 years of law enforcement background, and you have to pass a background check, which they haven't stated what will be included in that background check. The state will look at all this stuff and determine if someone is even eligible to run for sheriff in Washington State. Now, one of the big problems with this is we live in a one-party state, and this government has been known to basically shut down anybody who doesn't align with their ideology. So if you want to run for sheriff and you're a constitutional sheriff, which means you're going to follow the Constitution, not the illegal laws that this legislature keeps passing in this state, they're just going to say you're not qualified and you can't run for sheriff. Another big aspect of this bill is the fact that if they decide that you're elected sheriff and they decide they don't like what you have to say, they don't like the fact that you're pushing back against unconstitutional laws that they pass, they're going to have the ability to remove you as the duly elected sheriff of your county. And that's really a big problem. As you know, the county sheriff is the highest elected law enforcement official in the county. You know, I mean, pretty much in the country, really. They're the only direct person who enforces the laws in the United States that is elected, not appointed by a governor or Congress or Senate. They are elected by the people. We choose who we want to administer the law in our counties. Okay? And we choose who we want to uphold the Constitution in our counties. And the problem with having one appointed by bureaucrats, and you can see this in what's happening in King County right now. King County decided they wouldn't let their citizens vote for their own sheriff, and they now appoint the sheriff. And what you got is a sheriff who is just a yes man. Whatever they say, they do. Whether it's constitutional or not, yes man's going to toe the party line and enforce what the bureaucrats in King County want them to do. The whole point of the people electing their own sheriff is to have somebody who stands between them and corrupt politicians who would abuse them. Corrupt politicians who would abuse our rights and pass unconstitutional laws, which happens all the time in this state. They violate the Constitution all the time, not just the federal Constitution, but the state Constitution. And we've talked about that on several occasions. But basically, they the only person who can stand up to them, and we have several sheriffs in this state who have stood up to the elected bureaucrats and refused to enforce unconstitutional laws, are a big pain in the butt for these elected bureaucrats. So now they want to take control of them, and they want to remove the ones who are standing up to them and put in some yes man who's just going to violate your rights. And this falls under the whole Democrat ideology, where just like, the sheriff and all elected officials, they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of Washington State and the United States. But they do not follow that oath. They constantly violate the state constitution. They constantly violate the federal constitution. They do whatever they want. They have complete power in this state. So they don't care if they violate that or not, because they have absolute power in this state. And the only ones who can stand up to them at this point are the sheriffs. That's our last line of defense, to stand up against the unconstitutional acts of the Democrat Party in Washington State. And now they're going to try to pass a bill to take control of the sheriffs and be able to decide who can even run for sheriff, and also have the ability to remove the sheriff. Now, number one, if a sheriff is corrupt or doing things that are illegal, there is a mechanism in place, and it has been in place for 250 years, to remove the local elected sheriff. That is a recall by the voters. We, the voters, elect the sheriff. We, the voters, are the only ones who can remove that person from office. That's the way it works. And they want to take the power away from us. They don't want us to be able to elect who we want to be sheriff. They don't want us to be the ones who decide whether the sheriff needs to go or not. It's just another case of Washington taking power away from the people and giving it to themselves. They do this all the time, and people just sit here and take it. And this needs to stop. We need to stand up against this. We need to tell them, no way. This is, this is unconstitutional. It's illegal. The sheriffs work for us, not you. Okay? As a matter of fact, you work for us. We don't work for you. But the Democrats don't see it that way. They see themselves as being the ones who know better for everything, and they're going to tell us what we need to do and what not to do. And they should have the final say in everything. And they don't. We, the people, have the power in this state, not the elected bureaucrats in this state. And they just trying to take more and more power away from us, and people are letting it happen. We need to stand up against this. Now, we have one sheriff, Pierce County Sheriff Keith Swank, who went to the public testimony on this bill, and he made a little speech. And in his speech, he made a comment at the end that is, can be controversial, but it's basically, telling the elected officials in our state, hands off. And now the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs is trying to remove him from that association. Now you got to remember, WASPC is made up of sheriffs and police chiefs. Police chiefs are appointed. They're politically appointed. We have police chiefs who have zero background. They were picked for diversity reasons or whatever, or because they're going to toe the line of whatever the city council and the mayor of the city is pushing, So we have a lot of these basically left-leaning political appointee police chiefs who are part of the WASPC, and these are the ones who are voting to have him removed because he dared to stand up against the tyranny of the Democrat Party in Washington State and what they're trying to do by taking the power of electing and removing sheriff away from the people and give it to themselves. So they're trying to remove him from the WASPC. And, that's about the only thing they can do to retaliate against him at this point. But he made a rather moving speech. And if you haven't seen it, I'm going to go ahead and read the text of that so you know what was said and what the controversial part was. But, yeah, it's, anytime you stand up to Washington State all their little appointees they got in positions of power will do everything they can to harass you, remove you, cancel you, and get you out of the picture so that you can't stand up in the public view to oppose them. They will do everything they can to shut down your voice. And that's what they're trying to do to Sheriff Keith Swank here in Pierce County. So this is his statement on Senate Bill 5974. Again, Sheriff Keith Swank of Pierce County. In the interest of time, I'll skip the fake pleasantries and get right to it. Elections have consequences, and I acknowledge that. Democrats have a supermajority in the House, the Senate, governor, and every statewide executive office. You have it all except the office of sheriff. And once you have control over sheriffs, you think you can impose your will on people like me. Some of my colleagues naively believe that they can come here and reason with you. They think you don't understand what's at stake here. They don't understand, darn stupid thing. Quit. Let me get back to that. Okay. They think you don't understand what's at stake here. They don't understand you like I do. You know what is at stake and you are acting on it. You are not dumb, you are evil. But I'm not surprised. You're going to pass this qualification. Every time I try to scroll this, it minimizes this. I got to open it back up. Okay. You're going to pass this qualifications bill for law enforcement, but you will not hold yourselves accountable. You say we have to hold the chiefs and sheriffs accountable because they enforce the law. That's just the excuse you use for the low information people that vote for you. If you really want accountability, you would have qualifications for anyone who runs for office. You write laws that we enforce, so why should you not have the same qualifications? I propose that everyone who runs for an elective office go through a background check, a social media review, a polygraph, and a psychological test. Democrats won't agree to that because you have convicted felons who are elected officials and you want more. Excuse me. I represent almost 1 million in Pierce County, many more people than any of you do. I was elected chief of police. Being sheriff of Pierce County is much more than just police work. Citizens reach out to me all the time regarding overreach of the government by you. Some say they finally have a voice because of me, and you want to silence my voice. If I toed the Democrat line, you would not have any issue with me. But since I know what a woman is, and I know transgender women are men, you want me silenced. You want to give an unelected bureaucracy the ability to decertify me and remove me from office because you don't agree with my speech. You Democrats hate President Trump so much, yet you do the very things you accuse him of doing, such as imposing these types of controls over other independently elected officials. Also, just for the record, my deputies don't wear face masks, but once you pass a law that they can't, I will not only allow them, but I will also encourage them to do so. I don't recognize your authority to impose these controls over me. And when you try to remove me from office before my term expires, thousands of Pierce County residents will surround the county city building in downtown Tacoma and not allow that to happen. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I and they are prepared. Are you prepared? Finally, anyone who votes for this will never have an audience with this sheriff. Keith Swank. Sheriff Keith Swank of Pierce County. So that last part's the controversial part. And, where it says, if you try to remove me, the people of Pierce County will block you from doing so. Now, that is a controversial part, but he is taking a stand. And it's a stand that needs to be taken against this government overreach because the office of sheriff is in the United States Constitution. Okay? Saying that the sheriff is the sole law enforcement official of the county. and he's elected by the people. That's established by the United States Constitution. And Washington State is trying to override that with this bill that will give them control over the sheriffs, who can do it, and whether or not they can be removed. Again, this is an office where the sheriff is elected by the people, and only the people should be able to remove that person. Barring that person committing some sort of crime where he's convicted and then can be removed because he's convicted, can no longer serve. Other than that, they can't just be removing sheriffs just because they don't like what the sheriff stands for if they happen to be on the opposing side politically. But that's what they're going to do if they get this bill passed. And of course, they're not going to allow any more public comment on this. So you're going to have to reach out to your elected officials and tell them absolutely not. This is unconstitutional. We decide who our sheriff is, not a bunch of elected bureaucrats in Washington State. So that's all I have on this subject. Again, this is revisiting what happened last year. As you know, our legislative sessions run in 2-year cycles. If something doesn't pass one year, it comes up the next year. And this is one of those ones that didn't come out last year, but its ugly head is being raised again. And we need to fight against it. And that's all I have to say on this subject. Prepping tip of the day. So today's prepping tip is going to be self-defense and your ability to hunt wild game, basically. We're talking about firearms. We're talking about weapons you can hunt with, okay? And that's part of preparedness. I've been on a lot of prepper forums, and I have seen a surprising number of people who claim to be preppers who are 100% against firearms. They're scared of them. They don't want to own them. And these are people who have like 5 years of food stored up. They got their aquaponics all set up, and they got, every, full solar. They got serious preppers. They can live off the grid forever, right? But they're against owning a firearm because guns are scary and they're bad. Well, I'm here to tell them and any of you out there, it doesn't matter how much you have, how well prepared you are. It does not matter if you got enough to make it the entire rest of your life. You are not going to survive if you cannot defend what you have. You have to have the ability to defend what you have. If you don't, somebody's going to take it from you. And these people, preppers who have all this stuff, they're going to, number one, if anybody finds out you got all this stuff, which they will, because they'll see that you're not struggling and they are, the people will come after it. And they'll take it from you if you don't have the ability to defend yourself. So, I mean, these people who are preppers and they have all this stuff but are against defending themselves are the most illogical human beings on the planet as far as I'm concerned. Because after 3 days, there's no more food. There's no more nothing. 3 days is what the food supply in the stores is going to last. And then people are going to go hungry. People who go hungry get desperate. Their kids are starving. They're going to do whatever it takes to try to get their children fed and to feed themselves. And if you're sitting over here with all this stuff and you have no way to defend it, you're going to die. And they're going to take everything you have, everything you worked so hard to prepare for. It's all for nothing if you can't defend it. So, number one way to defend yourself, bottom line, it's firearms. Get a firearm, and not just a pistol. You need to have a way to reach out and touch someone. You need some sort of rifle. You need a shotgun for close-up work. You need to have a lot of firearms, different tools for different reasons, but you need to have the ability to defend yourself. And you also have enough ammo to last you. Okay? I've talked to people and they say, oh, I can defend myself. I ask them, how much ammo you got? Oh, I got 2 boxes, 20 rounds each, 40 rounds. It's like, that's going to last you about the first day. And then you're deep shit. You got to have enough ammo to last. So, prepping tip of the day. Get yourself a firearm. Get yourself different types of firearms because there's reasons for different firearms. Pistols for close up. And, for those of us who served in the military, the only reason you carry a pistol is so that you can make it to your rifle. You need a rifle to reach out and touch someone, to keep them away from you. You can hit them farther away and stop them before they can get close enough to do any damage to you. Shotguns, great for if you have to defend yourself up close or inside. Awesome thing to have in your inventory of firearms. But those are the different uses of the different types of weapons. Again, rifles also good for hunting. Good luck hunting with a pistol. Yeah, you can do it, but you got to be really close, right? You're better off having a rifle where you can, again, reach out and acquire that animal at a distance. Now, you go to get firearms. Number one, you need to learn how to handle it safely. Okay? You need to know how to maintain it. You need to know how to clear a jam or a misfire. You need to educate yourself on firearms. If you're going to get a firearm, you need to educate yourself on it. You also have to become proficient with the firearm. You have to practice all the time. You can't just go to range 4 or 5 times and get to where you can shoot it pretty good and you can hit the target and say, okay, I'm good with a pistol. I don't have to worry about it. No, you're not. I guarantee if you go back in 6 months, you ain't going to hit nothing, right? It's a perishable skill. Shooting is a perishable skill, and it needs to be practiced. It needs to become second nature. You need to be able to do it without thinking, because when you actually need to defend yourself, your adrenaline's high, your mind's not working clearly. You're in that fight or flight mode, and you're not near as accurate as you are when you're standing there blinking at a target at the range. Okay, so you need to become proficient. It needs to be second nature. It needs to be automatic. It needs to be muscle memory to be able to defend yourself. Now, that's firearms in a nutshell. Again, get trained. I would advise getting a concealed carry permit now while you still can, before they put a bunch more requirements on getting concealed carry permit in Washington State, because it is going to be changing. And if you don't get one now, you're going to have to go through a whole bunch of hoops to be able to get a concealed carry permit in Washington State. So now's the time. Do it. Other ways to defend yourself. I'm not going to go into everything, but I'm going to say, bows, defend yourself in hunting, bows and arrows, crossbows, things like that. Anything that's a ranged weapon, anything that can get out there at a distance and stop people rather than up close. If they're close enough for you to use a knife, you're in trouble, right? You want to be able to reach out and touch someone. That's one of my favorite things, but you want to be able to reach out and touch someone. Now, in my case, for self-defense, I have my firearms. That's for self-defense. But in a long-term situation where you have to survive for a long time, you're also going to have to take wild game to eat, right? Now, you can only store so much ammo, right? And there's ways to store ammo, and I'm not going to go into that. You can go online and find that. But you need to have plenty of ammunition. What you don't want to do is use the ammo that you have for defending yourself to also hunt and get food. You can store enough ammo for that, but again, long-term grid down situation, the ammo's only going to last so long. So you want to use as little as possible, except for when it's to defend your life. That's where things like bows come in, right? Good compound bow, excellent for going out hunting. Get yourself a compound bow, learn how to use it, learn how to hunt with it. That way you don't have to use your precious ammo to gather food. You have the ability to get food and not waste the ammunition that you have. An option for, some people just can't get the hang of shooting a bow. It's not easy. It requires some skill. It requires a lot of practice and training. So in those kind of scenarios, there's also crossbows. Crossbows are very easy to use. They're very good for hunting, and they're also very good for self-defense. They're silent, so people can't tell where the shot came from, right? If you hit them with a crossbow or a compound bow for that matter. But they have uses in self-defense, but also in hunting, they're very good. Crossbows is easy. It's like shooting a rifle, just bang. The one drawback to a crossbow type weapon is it is very slow to load because they have a lot of pressure. They are very hard to get the string back. And, a lot require some kind of a pulley system to do that. So that's just one thing to think about. If you're thinking about using a crossbow, just know you're not going to be shooting very rapidly with it, because they do take a few seconds to get the string pulled back and to get them loaded. Whereas a compound bow, shoot the arrow, snatch one, shoot it, snatch one, shoot it. You can shoot those pretty fast, but a crossbow takes a little bit of time. So good for hunting, self-defense, questionable because of the load time, but also very good for ambush. If you want to take one person out, they're pretty good for that, if you're defending yourself. But yeah, I'd recommend them more for hunting than anything else. But again, if you can learn how to use a compound bow, that works very well too. So these are some ways you can defend yourself. There's also a lot of other things you can do to fortify your position and to defend yourself, tripwires, warning flares, those type of things. There's a lot of things you can go into on that subject. I'm not going to go there. I just want to talk about the main thing of having the ability to hold on to what you have. And that requires being able to use deadly force with some type of weaponry to defend yourself and everything that you have. If you're not willing to do that, you're not going to last long. That's all I have today on Behind the Wire. Once again, if you want to know who we are, what we do, what we stand for, here at the Washington 3%, you can go to our website at wa3%.org. We also have our charity, Boots on the Home Ground, which helps veterans and communities in need. And that is bothg.org. So check us out. If you like what you see, you can apply. We do background checks on everybody we bring into our organization, because we don't want no criminals and no pedophiles in our organization. So with that, that's all I have for today. I'll see you next time on Behind the Wire. Good night.